Hello, welcome to Parenting Today. My name is Rebecca Miruri Mulure. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, today on the show, we are going to talk about vaccine uptake in children. It's a very, very important issue to discuss. And with me today is my clinic book, rather my child's clinic book. And I'm here looking at the vaccination calendar, the age and the vaccine that they're supposed to be given. At birth, there's OPV, BCG, hepatitis B. There's DTA, CP. We have a doctor on set, a pediatrician, Dr. Imran Harris, who's going to tell us what all these terminologies mean and how important it is to have these vaccines taken by your child. On set today is a parent. We also have a parent on set, Timanoi Tingoya. I had to read out your name. Such a difficult name, but very beautiful. Timanoi Tingoya, a parent of 3.
Yes.
You said?
Yes, 3 children.
So, you have a 6-year-old,
Yes.
a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dr. So good to have you here today.
Always a pleasure. Thanks,
Dr.
Rebecca.
Imran Harris from the Honeybee Children's Clinic. And today we have you on the first part because we're going to talk about vaccines.
Sure.
It's a very important topic to discuss because we've seen, I think recently, the Ministry of Health was talking about how COVID affected children. Affected a lot of parents. They were not able to take their children for vaccination. And now we are seeing the repercussions like 3 years later. I think there was an outbreak of rotavirus
Right.
because of not taking the vaccines. So let me start with
Sure.
her first. Tell me about yourself, tell me about your children and how the the vaccine process has been going on. You tell us the difference between immunization and vaccination.
So I have a 6-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 6-month-old. I will speak from the 6-month-old because that is what I remember more. So when they were born, the first day they got polio, they got BCG, if I'm not wrong. And at 6 weeks, we went for a vaccine, and 10 weeks and 14 weeks. And right now, we are about to go for a clinic on Thursday for the 6-month vaccine.
Vaccine.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me about the 6-year-old right now.
Yeah.
At what point did you stop going for the vaccinations, and how was that process like, if you can remember?
I stopped at, I think it was 1 year and a half, 18 months. I think that is the last time I went for, I think it was measles, or I'm not so sure, but I remember we went 1 year, 18 months there. And after that, I've never gone to the clinic for immunization. But we go for checkups, because the good thing, the doctor who handles our babies is one person.
Okay.
So if there's anything, he normally says, have you gotten this deworming? I don't know, but he's the one who does everything. So that is the last time I went for that.
You know why I asked that? Because I've actually been reading that these kids are supposed to be taken for vaccination up to 5 years. She stopped at 1 year and 8 months. I have a 5-year-old. I think I stopped at around the same time. After 2 years, I was done. I didn't know that. Okay, not that I didn't know. I had this book, but I did not continue with the vaccinations. Tell us the importance of vaccines. Let's start from there.
All right. So we always say prevention is better than cure. Okay, we've seen it around us. Even COVID hit us quite bad, and we were all inside our houses, fearful of what will happen next. And then by the luck of science and God and everything that comes by, vaccines were created with the new technologies that have come up. We were able to achieve at least full coverage in our country, and Africa, we thought it would be worse off than other countries. We managed to get through, and now we don't even think about those days. It's like COVID was in the past.
Yes.
And our forefathers also at some point used to deal with smallpox and other very deadly diseases, which would be almost fatal for majority of the population. But we don't even look and remember some of these. And a lot of dangerous diseases have been eradicated around the world. Of course, in our country, we still have, for example, polio coming up and about. And so some of these are still re-emerging infections. Typhoid is coming up again. So we have re-emerging infections. So vaccines become our key point in preventing a lot of these, illnesses, hospitalizations, and death as well. You see, yeah. So it's one of the most cost-effective, preventive healthcare mechanism in this whole process. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And how long does it take before, for a vaccine, rather for immunization? I think you're trying to explain to me the difference between immunization.
Right. Let's get that clear.
first.
Yes. So vaccination is the process of inserting either a part of a organism so that the body can recognize this part and create antibodies, so that in the event that it comes, it will be able to attack. All right. So vaccination is the process of inoculation, or bringing in the vaccine into the body. Immunization is how the body creates the antibodies, right, and is able to surmount a protective force. That is immunized. So if you say I'm fully immunized, means you have gotten your vaccinations and your body is responding well towards that. Yes.
Okay. So at what point does it become important for the scientists and the researchers to now come up with a vaccine? How do you know, how do you tell that this disease now requires a vaccine?
Right.
And after how long does it take now for it to be declared safe now? Like like you're saying, we are talking about the smallpox. At some point it was a big deal, but right now I don't think we get that vaccine anymore.
That's correct. Yeah. So we've actually advanced quite fast, and a lot of, for example, the COVID vaccines, the ones that are using DNA or RNA technology, was actually a by chance, because they were working on another type of virus or vaccine at some point, and they were getting good results, you see. And then suddenly COVID came about, and so they said, let's try and use this RNA technology, and they were able to actually develop some of this new type of vaccine, which really has a better, safer way of and as we move on forward, we won't be actually using organisms into our body. We'll actually just be using this technology to enhance our vaccine cover. Yeah.
Okay. So I think there's a second question that you did not answer. Up to what point now do you realize that we are done with one?
Yeah,
with a disease?
that's a good question. So yeah, so a country usually goes through a surveillance program, and in that surveillance program, they're looking for new, strains of viruses or new diseases coming up, and if there's a really no-show sort of a thing, then they tend to, ensure that there's full coverage as well. And when these diseases are not re-emerging or upcoming, and there's no report of these diseases, then they finally declare. It takes about 3 to 5 years, and then they say, yep, that's it, done. Yes, and we recently heard from the WHO that they've actually said that, COVID is also something, that has been sort of not eradicated, but, it's not something that's dangerous at this point.
At this point.
Yes.
Back to you. We now, like the 3 children now, let's talk about the immunization. How important was this for you? Like, what kind of information did you have before starting the clinics, and how has it been since that time?
I think the first time I was told that for the 6 weeks it's going to be painful for the baby, that we're going to have sleepless nights. But so far I've not seen with my children. It's just that they're usually, what will I say, they're restless. They're not the way they're usually. But In terms of sleeping, they sleep throughout the night. I think it's an exception. It's exceptional for most people because most people say that their babies don't sleep. But for my 3 babies, they've slept so far. They're just restless during that period. That's the only challenge I've seen. And then the other thing is that you're usually told give them Calpo before taking them for the vaccine.
Keep clarifying that. I've had that too.
Yes.
Is that right?
So babies are unique and different, okay? And of course, we have, we must always, just like any medication, there's always side effects. So you're looking at, either having some fever, some localized swelling, some pain, discomfort, fussiness, and the likes, right? So those are all anticipated. And I avoid, giving medication below 3 months. I say if it's not really required, just exposing the baby is good enough. Sometimes you can just put a sort of like menthol or something rub on the site of vaccination, just cooling that area sometimes reduces the inflammation of the injection, and with that inflammation down, no fever, no fussiness, and that's an easy way out as well. Or just breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is very soothing for babies, especially when they've been vaccinated.
Yes.
Yeah, just being close and just being held is more than enough.
Wow,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yes.
I know she's talking about the pain, and we have baby-friendly. They say baby-friendly vaccines. That the baby will not cry, or the baby will be just okay
Yeah.
after vaccination. Tell me about baby-friendly vaccines.
Yeah, so it has many terms. There's baby friendly, some call it private vaccines. So basically, these are not how do you say, mass vaccine pockets where you'll have one day specific for babies to come on, like a Monday, and then they get a batch of vaccines for that day. This is one vaccine per child. So it's a pre-filled vaccination, and the needles are very small, so there's very little injury, I would say, yeah. And though it comes with a cost, yeah, they come with a cost as compared to,
costly.
they're very costly,
Compared to
yeah, exactly, as
the
compared to
normal
the
vaccines.
normal vaccines, which are supposed to be free by the government. So really, it's the same vaccine. It's just that for some reason,
Packaged differently.
it's packaged differently. It comes on its own. Each baby has his own vaccine, and they tend to have less side effects.
I want to hear more about that. Let's take a short break. You tell us about baby-friendly vaccines after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Parenting Today, and today we're talking about vaccine uptake in children. And on set is Dr. Imran Harris, who's explaining to us about vaccines. And we also have Timanoi Tingoya, a parent of 3. Yes, and she has a 6-month-old who I think the experience with vaccines is very fresh. Now, we were talking about baby-friendly vaccines.
Correct.
Continue telling us about those.
Right. So the government usually has specific vaccination, the most important vaccination that every child is recommended to have up to 18 months, and for girls at 10 years, the HPV vaccine is included. The private vaccines are somewhat different because they have combinations. So, for example, the 6, 10, 14 weeks, you'll have a pentavalent, means 5 in 1, and then another vaccine will be separate. I think it's a cost thing and makes the cost down for the government. Now, in the private vaccines, you'll have 6 in 1, so you'll have a hexavalent So it's less vaccines, less injections, but there are also extra vaccines that are given beyond 1 year that the government isn't doing on that end. So for example, at first, year one, you'll have cholera, hepatitis A, and others. So these are, of course, not life-threatening diseases, but you wouldn't want your child to go through that. For example, chickenpox vaccine, so that they can avoid, missing out on school, and just having less hospital visits, all of that, just by doing that vaccination. When we were young, we never had typhoid vaccine, and now it's there. So that's a private vaccine as well that the government isn't giving out as well. Yeah, yeah. So that's basically
So
the
they're
difference.
basically like
Yeah.
private vaccines.
Or you'd say
that-
add-ons or something if you could, yeah.
Ah.
Like you can still do the government vaccines, and then you can always come back and, catch up. We call it catch-up vaccine on any that you feel that you're able to afford.
So we're talking about, I think at birth there is OPV, BCG,
Correct.
hepatitis B. What is OPV?
It's oral polio vaccine, yeah. So this is a wild type of polio. We'd say like the original polio virus itself, but it's weakened or attenuated, we call it, yeah, so that you are taking it orally. So because polio works, it's like an infection that works, fecal oral means through the tummy. So this weakened polio is like you're being given polio itself, but it's so weak that it can't bring out an infection. Okay, so once it gets into the stomach or the gut, the body then starts, fighting it and producing antibodies. All right. Now those antibodies will help the body learn, because every vaccination is a learning curve for the body, but that usually has a trajectory or curve in your XY that after some time, if there's still no stimulation, it'll keep going down until you boost the vaccine with another, oral polio, for example, at 4 weeks apart, so that the curve remains above the line and gives you a longer protection. Yes, that's why we do booster vaccination.
So
Yeah,
vaccinations.
yeah,
And polio has been there for a while.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you give that at birth and not later on? Why is polio given at birth?
Because polio is still one of those not eradicated diseases, which if left when the babies have lower immunity, and they pick up the oral polio by any way of hygiene issues or anything, it can actually cause lifelong paralysis to this child. You see, so in the past when we never had vaccines like that, children used to really suffer and go through paralysis that was sort of decapitating and sort of what do you call it? Just yeah. Sorry. Yeah, just quite sad. It's quite sad. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a very important vaccine.
Very, very important. Yeah.
Yes. Back to you. Other than the vaccines that you'd go for, have you had to supplement in any way, like supplement the vitamins, or do you do any supplements for your children?
Yes, I do. I give them cod liver because they go to school, and once school is open, they just have to come with flus. And they will infect each other, so I just have to do cod liver.
As an immune booster.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also-
What are these other immune boosters that I know parents? You always have all these immune boosters that happen. Okay, maybe they work. Tell me about that.
Then I also try to give them dawa, concoction. They don't like it. And so I just tell them, you see, this is good for your health. They don't like it, but I tell them, let's just take kidogo. It will help you. So that's what I try supplementing for them and ensuring that they have fruits in the house so that their immune will be good.
Will be good.
Yes.
How do you boost a child's immunity?
I agree with T quite a bit. I mean, that was very good. Yeah. So, I mean, breastfeeding for the first at least 6 months is one way of boosting immunity, and going all the way up to 2 years is one very important way of improving your immunity. Of course, hygiene is part of the whole process. Okay. Then you have your dawa. you have fruits which have packed with all sorts of vitamins as well. Yeah, but of course there are important vitamins that come along the way. You've mentioned vitamin A, which comes every, the government is giving that every 6 months. That helps to protect the eyes as well, and the skin, and all sorts of, prevent night blindness and that. Then there's vitamin D, that's very important for preventing rickets, and I think that's something that I see a lot nowadays, rickets, because of the children being indoors a lot, the concrete jungle. So yeah, so vitamin D is very key as well. Cod liver, yeah, omega 3s and 6s are very good for the brain. So yeah, a lot of this and that really helps. But she mentioned something about flu. The flu vaccine is there, and the flu vaccine is usually given at 6 months and 7 months. And I'm a big advocate for flu vaccine, because as much as you'll get the flu vaccine, you'll still get a flu. But the amount of times you'll get a flu is much, much less. Number one. Number two is that most infections that come, the bacterial infections that children get, where does the bacteria come from? It's a big question you ask. If your child gets sick and they test it and they find they have bacterial infection, the big question is, where is this bacteria entering into the blood from? So most common sites are the nose in children, and the urinary tract, especially in girls, and food poisoning. Those are common causes of bacterial infection. But now, if you take the flu vaccine, then your body tends to keep the flu at bay, because usually when the flu is coming, it hits the nose. There's a big war in the nose. Immunity drops. Then bacteria in your nose, which we all have, tend to then take advantage and enter into the bloodstream, and that's how you get a lot of bacterial infection. So just by removing the flu, you also reduce bacterial infections, hospital visits, expenses on coming to hospital and taking all sorts of medication which are unnecessary, cough syrups and whatnot, which we don't recommend anyway. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's part of the armory when children are in school as well.
Okay. Before the 6 months of like the vitamin A that is given at 6 months, is it recommended to give children, like those are now babies, not even toddlers, like
Yes.
babies? Is it recommended to give babies supplements?
So there's nothing wrong, but majority of babies who are breastfed or are already having these in their breast milk. So really, it's more of just a marketing strategy. But what I would recommend is vitamin D. Vitamin D is something that I see a lot of children at 1 year being deficient. And then, for example, if you're doing tummy time on your baby and your baby doesn't like tummy time, that's a red flag that, their muscles tone is down and their bones are weak or they're getting weak. So vitamin D together with calcium work together in tandem, so that you get teeth going on early, you're able to carry yourself, move around, you don't have developmental delays and the like. So I agree with vitamin D and A, and then pretty much the rest is all just about hygiene and good nutrition.
I'd want you to talk about the point that you've said, that sometimes you can get the vaccine,
Correct.
but the disease still hits the child. Like you can get the rota vaccine, but you still suffer from it, or the measles and chicken pox.
That's correct. Yes.
There's always a myth. Okay, maybe we'll talk
Yeah.
about the myth about
Yes.
lazima kila mtu apate chicken pox
Yes.
na measles.
Yes.
You'll tell us about that, but just tell me about
Sure.
getting the vaccine and still getting the.
So it's like COVID as well. I mean, you get the vaccine, you'll still get COVID, but you won't be hospitalized. You won't go to ICU, right? You'll get it.
Just
You'll
reduces
the complications, right? So same thing like if you get the MMR mumps or something, for boys especially, you get the mumps vaccine. It'll be localized here. You'll still get it, but it won't affect like now the testicles or the chest. Same things with measles. You can get measles, but you won't get full blown out measles. You get a chickenpox vaccine, you'll get one pimple, and that's it. You're done. So you don't really miss school.
It's not like a full-blown
It's not full blown out, and you know.
chickenpox.
Exactly.
And in that case, is that just a myth? Like every child has to get measles and chickenpox?
They need to get measles. Measles is a
They
very
need
deadly
to get
disease.
it.
The measles vaccine.
Oh no, the vaccine. No, but I'm saying like measles, the disease
Oh, to
itself.
get through.
They-
I mean, we live in a very infectious world. You know, children are going to school. They're bringing all sorts of things home. So the smaller babies, as much as the bigger ones, are not showing the symptoms because their immunity is slightly better, but they can pass it on to the smaller ones. Like, you know, the little one at home who's 6 months hasn't been vaccinated with measles, but if it's in the environment, on the air or something, then there's a risk.
Have you heard of that myth?
Yes,
Where
I
like
have.
expose your child to you find I've seen this.
Sure,
You
go
tell
ahead.
us, let me just tell you what the information that is out here.
Go ahead.
That you spot a child that has measles maybe in the neighborhood. You want to expose your child to that child chickenpox mostly.
Yes.
So that your child pia apate chickenpox amalizane na your face.
Yeah.
I've heard of
Yes,
that
I
a lot.
have. I have.
Have you ever practiced it?
No, I've not.
Tell me
But
about
I've
that.
heard it. I've heard that when someone wants to expose their child to the child with measles or chickenpox, mostly chickenpox,
Yes.
that a pattern don't talk apple. But then I'm thinking, I've never done that, but I've heard that myth. I would really love to know if that is true.
Well, it's a
from
way
the
of
doctor.
vaccinating your child, but without the injection. But they just have to suffer a little bit longer because they'll go through the whole full phase of that. But you're also risking your child with measles is something that's very dangerous, because measles has a lot of complications of measles pneumonia and meningitis, which I don't think any parent would want their child to be exposed
I've heard
to.
of
Yeah,
a case where it's caused deafness actually.
deafness as well. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So the complications are.
The complications are dire, yeah. So if it's something that you can prevent, why not just get vaccinated?
And you tell me whether after the break, you tell me whether measles, like if you don't get measles when you're a child, chances are that when you are grown up, it will still catch up with you after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Parenting Today. We are talking about vaccine uptake in children. And we, during the break, we are talking about, I know that it's a myth out there, Doc, about measles. Like a grown-up getting measles. Is it?
Yeah, so
Is it
I mean,
there?
like I said, sometimes your immunity can drop. You can always get even chickenpox as an adult if you never had it as a child. True? Yeah. So same thing with measles and any other disease. But sometimes what happens in these is it won't show as much, or it'll present itself differently in an adult form than when they're in their infancy or child. Yeah. So for example, like chickenpox. Chickenpox, once you get it as a child, you're immune to it, right? If you get it naturally. As an adult, it'll still be in your nerves. The chickenpox hides in your nerves. It sleeps there. It's very dormant.
Yeah.
Then if your immune system drops for any reason, or if you're immunocompromised, then it can waken up. Same thing like TB. It can waken up. And then it can affect you in a different... So you won't have like the whole chickenpox through your body. You just have half of your face or half of your chest or half of your... Yeah, because it works in a dermatome, which is like part of a nerve system. And because it's hiding in your nerve, it'll affect that nerve group only. And those are quite painful. when they come. Yeah.
Okay.
So they present themselves differently.
Now, the question of the day. I want you to take us through the vaccination calendar.
Right. So when a baby is born, we are happy, and we are moving from a different environment, always from the womb. The baby is probably getting some immunity through the placenta as the baby is the fetus is inside. Once the baby is out, is exposed to this world, this very harsh world, where just from the word go, you're having people handling the baby, touching. All of those infection control measures may or may not go through, and then the baby is exposed to a lot of infections. Now, there's always good infections and bad infections. The good ones, of course, are the good bacteria that the baby gets, from the mother's skin, breast, and other forms of, natural good community bacteria. But then there are these other ones that lurking around here and there, which we don't want the baby to get, because then we're in trouble. So we usually look at what can we give the baby initially. And the most common ones we give are the BCG. The BCG protects the baby from tuberculosis, okay, which is a chronic disease of the lungs and is very dangerous, we all know, right? Polio, which can cause paralysis, lifelong paralysis, is given to the mouth, and hepatitis B, okay? This protects babies from if the mother is infected with hepatitis or is already a carrier of hepatitis B, chronic infection. So those are the first vaccines before the baby is discharged. And it doesn't matter if the baby is preterm or term. Before they discharge from hospital, they get these benefits of these vaccinations, okay? And it doesn't matter if they're HIV positive or negative, they have to get all of these vaccinations. Once the baby goes home, they settle down. They're in the homestead for about 2 weeks. They get to be checked by the pediatrician, and then at their 6 weeks, they get their first set of vaccinations. Now, these may sound a lot, okay, because there's a 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks, which is a space of 4 weeks. This allows the body to learn, and the antibodies sort of are made. But before they drop, another peak is reached by a second booster and then a third booster, which then stays for up to a year and a few months. And that's why at 18 months, then you repeat the same. Okay. Now that one has, you give me a long one, DP, TT, AP, all of that, right?
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah,
that
I
one,
can see that.
yes. So that one covers about 5 or 6 vaccinations in one injection, and that usually covers at least tetanus, diphtheria. Some of these were very dangerous diseases. H. influenza is one of the most common causes of pneumonia, and very bad sickness in children, and death as well. And then there's also pertussis, whooping cough. Okay, so that covers.
You still have that?
I mean, it's re-emerging. It's re-emerging because a lot of people just stopped, especially in adults. Either we were not vaccinated that time, or it's our immunity is dropping, so we need to think about those. Then you're given the pneumonia vaccine and rota. Right now, rota is a very important vaccine because just by having good coverage in our country, we saw almost no more diarrheal diseases coming into our hospitals, when at some point the mortality had really risen up to almost 60% for rotavirus. Yes, or diarrheal diseases secondary to rotavirus. Unfortunately, the rotavirus vaccine during the post-COVID pre-election time, around that time, there was a shortage. There was a big shortage which took almost 6 months plus. And so a lot of children had a missed opportunity. There was a big missed opportunity at that point. So children who were then getting vaccinations during COVID, or had missed during COVID or during that period of time, now when we heard the reemergence and the surge in like Mombasa and stuff, these were those children who actually missed out on the rotavirus. So we can see the burden of disease when it comes to missed opportunities and things. And if they pass our eye, this is the consequences. Yeah.
So tell me about the vaccines that go beyond the 8 months or after the
Let, let,
2 years.
let's say 1 year. After 1 year, there's cholera. There's options of cholera, hepatitis A.
Yes.
There's boosters for meningitis. And then there's, and then there's basically, after 18 months, there's a 2-year typhoid. These are options again, like I said, yeah, options of typhoid. And then the flu vaccines annually at 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. And then at 5, you get an opportunity to get sort of what you got at 18 months, a Tdap, sort of to boost your tetanus. And I always find that at 5 years, that's a very important vaccine because it boosts your tetanus. Children at 5 years plus have a very high energy levels and they're playing outdoors and high risk of injury, cuts and, glass shreds and all that, thorns and stuff. So I would do a tetanus booster at 5 years and typhoid. And that's it. There's no more vaccines after that until the, 10 years, HPV for girls as well.
Talk about that.
Sure. So HPV vaccine is a vaccine to prevent cervical cancer in ladies who have started their sexual debut, and protects them from infections against the human papillomavirus, especially the strain 16, which recurrent infection or recurrent chronicity of that infection can lead to changes in your cervix, which then leads to cervical cancer. So we're seeing a lot of our young ladies succumbing to cervical cancer, and that's quite sad. So we are fortunate that the government has taken that up quite seriously, and we are now, giving all girls in school and boys as well have that opportunity, so that they prevent infecting girls at the same time. Yeah, so it's both ways, but majority is for girls who then can be protected.
Is there
from
one
this.
for boys, one for girls?
It's the same,
It's
same
the same
HPV. It's one given 6 months apart, so once and then 6 months apart, and then that's for life.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Do you have any questions for him?
A clarification on the HPV.
Yes.
I would want to know, do you walk into a hospital and say you want that for the child?
So the criteria is if your child is 10 and even up to 12, if they haven't received it, the catch-up vaccine, you can go ahead and actually request for all government institutions should be having the HPV vaccinations for, and there are also a lot of school programs I've heard that are coming to school and requesting parents to get the young ladies and men young boys vaccinated at that age. Yeah. I think it's very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the uptake like?
I would say it's quite good because of the education programs and resources going out towards this important thing, and we've had very important people in our lives, media personnel who have succumbed to the same, so it's touched our lives quite a bit. So it's something that we need to take personally about cervical cancer, and as well as a community and a country, and really take it up and move it forward.
Yeah, because I think I've had a lot of reservations from parents saying, why should I vaccinate my 10-year-old? Like they're not sexually active at that point. Why would they need this vaccine?
Yeah. So it's very important for the body to know about this this virus vaccine, so that it can prepare itself, because we are living in different times and the sexual debut is much earlier nowadays. Even under our eyes we'll think, oh no, my child isn't actually sexually active, and boom, there you are. And there's a lot of promiscuity and a lot of multiple partners. So for that reason, it's best to protect our children as early as possible. But I know ladies who are vaccinated even as late as 30. Yeah, you can still be vaccinated against HPV as long as you've had your regular, tests done, pap smears and whatnot. And if you're good, you can actually get your HPV vaccine at any point. Yeah.
Exactly, to prevent cervical cancer.
Cervical cancer.
Wow, this is quite an interesting topic. I think I really love it, but we've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much. Talking about vaccine uptake in children is quite a topic, because a lot of parents need a lot of clarification on some of the vaccines that we give our children. And I'm glad that we were able to talk about it. Thanks so much, Dr. Imran.
Always a pleasure.
From the Honeybee Clinic, Children's Clinic. And Timanoi, I told you I have to read your name. Timanoi Tingoya. Tingoya? Tingoya, yes. A parent of 3. We appreciate your time. Thank you for telling us about your experience. And I wish you happy parenting as you continue to parent your children. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching today's show. My name is Rebecca Miruri Mulure.
Welcome to Tile and Carpet, where we deal with everything you would need at home, in the office, restaurant, and hotels. We offer solutions to all your needs. We have a wide range of roofing solutions, tiles, sanitary furnishing, and interiors. We have exquisite furniture, elaborate dining sets, and classic comfy beds. Our prices are affordable across board. Feel free to visit us in any of our different branches in Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nairobi. We also do site visits and offer clients with professional advice. You can reach us on this number for the site visit.